What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, March 11th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 266. My voice might have cracked on that one, Phil, but we were doing a little bit of research before this episode started, and I am coming in rare form. I was calm beforehand. I took a nap. I was having a headache. We're recording at 3:30 on Saturday because someone here, me, is going on a vacation starting Sunday. So, early recording. So some of this stuff might be a little bit aged, but some of it might be like, wow, these guys are talking like it just happened, because it did. But, Phil, how are you on this rare Saturday recording, like middle of the day?
I'm okay. We like talking about the weather, and that is spiking terribly down for the rest of the weekend. So Friday was nice. Now it's getting cold, and then tomorrow is supposed to snow. So that's a good time. I did have somebody mention, so I'm just going to throw this out there now, who watches the YouTube channel, and I was literally just doing it, which is why I'm bringing it up. I have a 2-monitor system, so if you're watching on YouTube and I'm constantly looking way off screen, I am looking at the rest of the monitor, looking at stats, and looking at random stuff that I have pulled up on the screen. But I do that a lot. I'm looking like way off camera. But that's what I'm doing. I got 2 monitors looking all over the place. So if you ever were curious what I'm looking at way off camera, it's stats and whatnot going on for the show.
At least you're looking like straight. Half the time I've noticed myself just looking down. Now, I don't watch the YouTube after. I don't even listen to the episodes, because why would I want to hear about something that I literally just talked about? So I usually don't listen or watch back. So if there are things that you're noticing, go ahead and point them out to us. But yeah, I've kind of noticed, and I've kind of been told that when I'm talking, I look down and to the right. Sorry, JFK. But yeah, that was a bad one. I told you I was in rare form. But I don't even know if it's down and to the left. Who cares? He's been long gone for a while. R.I.P. But yeah, told you, rare form. But yeah, I kind of forget sometimes that there's even a camera recording right here, unless like I do one of my monologues of look at me, look at right here, that kind of thing. And I haven't done that in a while. I think the last time I did it was the wave. But yeah, there's times where I just completely forget that there's even a camera on me. I'm like, oh man, I hope I didn't do anything embarrassing in the last 5 minutes. But then I go, if I did, that's just, it shows you that 1, we don't edit the video, and 2, this is all real. Like, there is no made up things and no scripted things besides the things we're going to be talking about on the show.
Yeah, I got my giant knockoff Stanley that I use as my drinking throughout the show, and I'm sure I look ridiculous drinking it every single time, because it's one of the, like 48-ounce gigantic little things with a straw. But it's a good time.
I guess it's a good thing you're not having a Stanley. Don't they have like lead problems or something on like
I
their,
do believe so. I think it's like traces of some of them that aren't really harmful, but people like to throw things out there. But I don't own a Stanley because they're really expensive, so I have not looked into it whatsoever.
That's fair. I mean,
Mine
there's a
was
lot of
free,
things they claim
so
are not dangerous. So, like
true.
me, I live in Love Canal. If you don't know what Love Canal is, and you don't live here, you can Google it. But if you live in Love Canal and I have no idea what it is, don't Google it. It'll make you want to put a for sale sign
Or if
on
you
your
want to
front
listen
lawn.
to
So,
hypothetical history.
oh, good call. Call back. Our old show, Hypothetical History, we do an episode about Love Canal. Listen to that, regardless of where you live. That's a fun one. I want to see those numbers spike now. You can just follow us.
Episode.
Yeah, you can just, there's, 30 episodes, Phil? 40?
I think
40,
so.
might
It's
be 40.
A lot of content.
A lot of content, a lot of hours, and a lot of just head banging on the wall. You're just going, man, this is a lot of work we put in for a year. And I know there's still people out there that love it and want it back. Tough titmouse. If you want it back, you can do all the research, and we'll just talk about it. So, if you want to reach out about it and you want to be an unhired intern that we just abuse, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article is dropping on Tuesday. Mine is up in the air. Like, I will be soon. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do a full article because I'm not landing until midday Wednesday. So we'll see if you get a full article or if you just get like a PK high school version and just enough to get a passing grade. So stay tuned on Thursday. What you get, and look for a time breakdowns in the description of the show. I told you rare form. What was also rare form was the Buffalo Bandits because they got a victory, Phil. See how I connected all the dots there? They faced the Rush on Friday night. They walked away a 15-14 victor in overtime. This game, Phil, was the biggest lead by either team was 1. Yeah, it was a back and forth game, 5-5 at half before each team scored 6 apiece in the third quarter, 3 aside in the fourth, and then Nanacoke won it in overtime. Nanacoke, Byrne each scored 4, Kluch and Smith with 3, and then McKay was the only other goal scorer. Vince back in between the pipes for the first time in 2 games, 47-60 saves. Shots were 61-55 in favor of Saskatchewan. Faceoffs, baby, 27-6 in favor of Buffalo. And then the key stat here that I actually care about, Buffalo 3 for 3 on the power play, Rush 0 for 2.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down in this game in a good way, a bad way, a little bit of everything kind of way for me. But as far as the Bandits winning, which was fantastic, even if they lost, which would have been very demoralizing, it was just a really, really good game of lacrosse. Like if you don't know much about lacrosse, or it was, your first time watching the Bandits, or first time going to a game, or first time, you just don't care about either of the teams, you just happen to tune into this game. Really, really good game of lacrosse. Like you mentioned, no lead was bigger than 1. I thought both the teams played really well. The highlight reel goals from the Bandits were all over the place. The Rush had a lot of good goals themselves. It was just extremely entertaining, very nerve-wracking and weird being that close the entire game. Really happy that they got the win, obviously. But it was just a really good game of lacrosse and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and we're going to go into more of the details, but since you brought it up, this win was so important for the team because you lose this, you drop to 5-7 with Toronto coming into town next weekend. So if you drop that one, you're 5-8 with 5 games to go. Yeah. Now you're sitting at 6-6. You bump the Rush down, who is right on your tail, down to 4-6. You have the head-to-head advantage over them. You're a full game ahead of them, 2 in the win column over a team that's chasing you to get at a playoff spot. And also with that, again, we're recording Saturday, so the Saturday games haven't even happened yet. But currently, as the standings are right now at 3:43 on Saturday, you're ahead of Panther City. You're ahead of Calgary, who also lost. They dropped to 5-7. New York is sitting at 5-7. Philly is 4-6. So getting back to 500 was so critical in this one. Just because, we're not even talking about a home playoff game at this point. You're just trying to get into the playoffs. So that win right there, massive for this team. That's why we're saying it was a massive must-win game, because if you drop to 5-7, Saskatchewan is jumping you, and they have the head-to-head advantage over you. It's not a death nail in the coffin, but the coffin's in the ground. They're starting to put some dirt over top of you. So it was a huge, huge victory that they walked away with on Friday. So Phil, let's get into the forwards, because I think this was a very nice bounce back game for them after back-to-back weeks of Vancouver and Albany, where the offense just seemed out of sorts. It seemed like the majority of the players up in that group were moving and grooving, thriving, but I feel like there were still times where I was catching myself just going, what the heck is going on with this group?
Yeah, I have not had a good chance, because we're recording pretty early, to go back and really dissect this game. Honestly, it's going to be weird. Calling a team out for 15 goals, obviously the offense looked much better than they had, but I still was not in love with what they were doing. And I'll probably have to break it down more in the article that I write for Tuesday. But they had what I would say, I'm not going to call them lucky, but some of their outside goals that kind of trickled through were good shots, good opportunities. But, you got a little bit lucky that they went in. And then outside of that, they had some incredible highlight reel goals that are a lot of fun to watch, but not something I think you can kind of bank on. Right. So to me, again, I'll have to really go back through it, but there were 2 goals that stood out the most to me, and what I just really want to see this offense go to a lot more often, because they have the ability to do it, and they were both Byrne to Nanacoke. They were my favorite goals the entire game. Obviously, the insane highlight reel are really fun to watch, but from a analytical watching this offense standpoint, it was, I don't know when it was in the game. It was a little. I don't know when it was. I'll have to look it up. But there was one where it was Byrne to Nanakoke, where Byrne faked a really hard outside shot, found Nanakoke streaking across the crease. He made two really easy moves, had the goalie way out of position, and pretty much put in an empty net goal. And then the overtime game winner, where, again, Byrne was kind of keeping an eye on Nanakoke. I don't think he even faked a shot. I think it was just a really good pass. Nanakoke had that quick stick shot, and that's how they won it. Those are the kind of goals I want to see a lot more often from this offense. Again, highlight reel's fantastic. Outside goals, if they go in, are good to have. It's something I don't think you can rely on, but they're still a huge part of lacrosse and necessary. So not going to really knock those opportunities, but just why can the offense not find ways to do exactly what Byrne and Nanakoke did more frequently? Like, they have the offense to do it, and yet they still find themselves kind of being forced to have single man highlight reel opportunities, shots from the outside. I just want to see them be a little bit more consistent with easy opportunities, because I feel like they're just making it too difficult on themselves. But again, 15 goals, incredible. Not really trying to knock the offense, but just with how talented they are, I think they can play better as a whole, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But 15 goals, not really going to try to beat them too much down, because it was a really, really good game. The highlight reel goals were a lot of fun and really intense and just incredible. Burns 360 or 180 in the air to dunk it was just ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen a lacrosse goal like that. And then some of the other ones were great. And even even Smith getting a hat trick was just fantastic for him as well.
Yeah, the Nanakoke one you were talking about, that one was the one in the fourth quarter, less than 2 minutes in, where Nanakoke tied it 2-2. I was trying to look back, and I know you said it was a pass from Byrne to Nanakoke, but 3 of the 4 goals that Nanakoke had, Josh Byrne had the primary assist on all of them. But I'm 90% sure I'm 90% sure the one that you're talking about was in the fourth quarter, because they were shooting on the far side of my screen. Yes. And that's when that happens, is the second and the fourth, and Nanakoke didn't score in the second, so it was obviously the fourth quarter one. But I agree with the Josh Byrne one, also the goal scoring, and then I'll try to break it down more like you did. That goal, I know that I said, and we both said, that the Brandon Robinson goal, when he was still healthy, that one where he put it in with his offhand in the air, all those amazing moves that he was gypped out of even being the top goal scorer for his team that week. That was the best goal I'd ever seen. Yeah. That has now been replaced with the Josh Byrne goal. This Josh Byrne one, to catch it when his back is to the goalie and then still put it in the air as he's leaping across the crease, it was by far the best goal I've ever seen in my entire life. Agreed. In person or on TV. It was just ridiculous, the amount of skill that it took. And like I said, Brandon Robinson's one, it took unbelievable skill. And the type of player Brandon Robinson is, I also factored that into it, where he's not that type of agile. He's a bruiser to get in. Josh Byrne is known to do these type of wild things. To do something that I don't think I've ever seen before, and I've seen a ton of goals. I've watched every single game in the NLL this year. It's ridiculous. That goal was just absolutely disgusting, and I'm just sitting there. We stood up, and I'm like, there's no way I just witnessed that happen. And then I look on the big screen, I'm like, it's better and better each time you watch it, because you see a different detail. I noticed that he didn't even turn his head around to put it in until he's all already fading away from the net. It was ridiculous.
And
but
even just seeing everyone's reaction on the bench, when he went over there, all the guys kind of grouped around him. You know that they're just talking as buddies, essentially. What the heck were you just able to accomplish out there? What an incredible. Even Byrne was smiling the whole time. Yep, that was ridiculous, and I know it. It's just so funny to look at the bench and see pretty much everyone on the bench go over and talk to him and just kind of talk about that goal. What the heck just happened?
Yeah, my biggest things for this offense, like I said, they broke out of the scoring rut. Nanakoke hadn't had a big game in a very long time. Smith had not been able to score goals, and he got 3. Kluch and Byrne had been pretty much carrying the goal scorers for a while, and they scored 7 of the 15 anyways. And then McKay had the other one, so still the lefties are still leading the righties right now. But I noticed that they were still missing the net a ton of times. Yes. They are having a difficult time hitting the net. Yeah, and I'm just sitting there just going just hit the net, guys. How many times And we'll go over it in a bit, and I'm not going to dive too much into it, but the one issue that I've always had with the winning the faceoff and getting those extra possessions is you have to do something with those possessions to make the faceoff win worth it. And the offense just wasn't doing anything, and half the time they weren't hitting the net. Half the time it seemed like too much they were going to the one-on-one, try to beat the defender and then try to just pass it out when it wasn't working. I feel like they have to go more back to set plays that seem to be working. That one play, I think it was the one either right before half or after one of the quarter. I can't remember because Connor Farrell was doing a very good job. And yes, I'm crediting the faceoff man. I've never said faceoffs completely don't matter. I said it would be a nice thing to have in your back pocket, and it's a nice weapon to have, and he was. And faceoffs matter in certain situations. They mattered in this one, and he came up. And I'll talk about that more later. But I can't remember when it happened because it happened so often. But the one play design, it was similar to the one in Vancouver, but instead of hitting Nanico coming from the front, they hit a guy who was a lefty on the right or the opposite side, and that one almost went in. So I feel like there are great set play designs that come in from John Tavares and the coaching staff over there. It's just I don't feel like there's enough of the in-game set plays. Like in basketball, played basketball my whole life. There's different calls you call as you're running up the field. I just wish that they would go to that, like, hey, quick stick this time. Let's see if that works. Let's try the pick and roll here. Let's try to see if that one works. It just seems like there's a few guys that are out there grinding, trying to make lanes for the Dane Smiths, the Kluch, the Burns, and they're doing a good job of setting those lanes, but the defense is doing a good job of communicating, getting around that, because that's the Bandits' go-to style, is just setting those lanes, trying to get in front of the net. I just wish that they would come out with more set design plays, more times down the, not every time, because every time would just get boring and you want some of these free balling goals that you saw in this one. I just wish that they would go more to set plays down the field where it's like, okay, let's try to set this one up for a quick stick from Dane, get Josh open near the net for a quick stick. I just wish that that type of style of offense would slowly come back. Maybe it will, but I think you would find more sustained success, and you wouldn't go through goal scoring ruts, which you did in this one. But I feel like you wouldn't go through 20 to 30 minutes of no goals if you had more set plays that you would call out and try to go back to that well.
Yeah, and the only other thing really want to mention on the forwards was something we both kind of noticed was Ian McKay was pretty much just a forward until Martin went down. When Martin went down,
Yes.
It seemed like
Yep.
he was playing more shifts on the back end. But before that, he was essentially just a lefty forward. I know they don't have Brandon Robinson, so having an extra body up there is fine. But the two things that are just interesting and kind of one I didn't like, I mean, I didn't really like either, for being honest. McKay being more of a forward, I know he has that ability. He showed it last year. I have no problem with him playing more of a transition role, more forward shifts, but seeing him pretty much eliminated from the back end as one of your best defenders,
Yep.
don't like that. And then the same thing with Dane Smith. The amount of defense he was playing made no sense to me. And again, I'm fine with him occasionally running back or occasionally taking a defense shift so you can, again, make him a little bit more of a transition player because he breaks out so well with the offense. But the amount of times I saw Dane Smith play defense and then pass it up to the offense and run off because he was tired, which is fine. He just played a whole defensive shift. I get that. He's not going to stay on the field, but you're eliminating one of your best offensive players to go play defense. And then on the other side, you have one of your best defensive players to go play offense, so he's not playing defense. I don't get that. I understand that they're going through a lot of injuries. A lot of things are being shifted around. I do not like either of those shifts. I mean, Dane Smith's been fine on defense. I don't think he's a liability. McKay's fine on offense. I don't think he's a liability, but you're taking them away from what they do really, really well and what they do best for this team. And I think they've swung way too far in the opposite direction for both of those players. And I think they need to get them back doing a little bit more of what they are really good at, which is defense and offense. I just don't like how far they've swung the other. I don't know. I just don't like how they've made McKay full offense almost and Dane way too much on defense, in my opinion, for what he does on offense.
Yeah, my only thought behind that is because of the righty-lefty matchup on the defensive side is the righties are the ones that were getting the most injured, and Dane Smith's the righty for the forwards. So I think it would be interesting to know how many times he just calls his own number and stays back there rather than John T just goes, yeah, like, hey, you take a shift back there. Like, I like having Dane Smith back there occasionally because he is,
oh, for sure.
as much as I knock him of not going all out on the defensive end, which I still think he could put in. Again, I'm finding little things to pick out of this one. I don't think he goes as hard on the back end as you would see a Josh Byrne or a Chase Frazier, where you're seeing them push and get around those picks easier. He didn't get burned at all in this game. He has gotten burned in the past, but I do like how quick his stick is back there, and he's able to cause the turnovers
a lot more.
Exactly. Yes,
like
he's less about
like
the banging. Yes,
like a zone. Like he's
Yep.
looking for passes, trying to get the cause turnovers, so he
got
take
2 of them
off.
this game.
He's not really like a one-on-one defender. He's more just kind of eyeing the entire play, using his offensive mind, and just trying to wait for that opportunity to pounce to get a breakaway. But sorry, continue.
No, agree. That's you summed it up perfectly. That's more of the style that he plays in the back end, and it works. But sometimes when it doesn't, that's when it gets burned. So it's a big high risk, high reward type of thing. But that's pretty much all we got for the forwards. Let's dive into our first sponsorship before we start talking about the defense and goaltending and so on and forth, because we're about a third of the way through the show. So Phil, tap that tap room, first sponsor ever. Take it away with sponsor numero uno for the show. Yes, I took 5 years of Spanish.
You are just rare form.
Told you.
We're going to keep saying.
You were warned.
Tap room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. That means you go up, pick what you want, have as little or as much as you want of it. They have 30 consistently rotating taps and a variety of beers, ciders, sours, seltzers, and malt beverages.
And we were there to watch the Halifax game. We will be back eventually. Just got to find the right time where it works out for your schedule and my schedule. But don't forget, they also have food available. I don't think we've been plugging that enough, so that's why we're doing it right now. When we went, I had these soft pretzel bites, had dippable cheese. I thought they were delicious. My wife had the chips and salsa, and then producer Pat had the nachos. He really liked them. I believe you're not going to get the full-on like steak dinner, but you're not going there for a steak dinner. You're going there for a nice little meal while you're watching the Bandits game. You don't want to be like having a knife and a fork and, hey, can you pass the steak sauce when you're watching a Bandits game? You want finger food while you're there, and I think they do some of the best job of that around the area is the finger food type food.
They do also have. I can't take you right now.
Everybody's been warned, man.
They do also have some fancier options, such as the turkey BLT with homemade cranberry mayo and a unique to them, from what I know, apple nachos for dessert, something that is a little bit more their kind of thing and not something I've often seen available. But if you go for a late night Bandits game, you're having a couple drinks and you want something for dessert, the apple nachos are quite delicious and very interesting.
Yeah, those ones caught my eye. I'm definitely going to get those ones next time. But they also have a large patio with board and card games for everybody. And for those of you who live around Western New York, because I know there are some listeners around the country for this show, thank you. But the weather was much nicer this past week. I know it's going to dip down a bit, but the nice weather is on its way. So they have a large patio that you're going to be able to hang out on. I've heard many, many people talk about it last summer, and I can't wait to bring my dogs because guess what? They're dog friendly. So there will be more animals there. So if you are an animal lover, a dog lover, you should be expecting more dogs as the weather breaks and the nice weather goes. I mean, I wore shorts to the Bandits game, so I can't wait to be bringing my shorts and my dogs to tap that tap room when the weather officially breaks and we're getting constant 60s and 70 degree days.
You can also check out their Facebook page and website for all their posted events, including a jam-packed upcoming weekend, which we will talk about on our next episode.
So, Phil, let's dive into the defense in this one. For me, yes, it was week 8 in a row of giving up at least 13 goals against. I get that, and why can I keep saying I actually like the defense? I actually really like the defense for the most part. I think there were 1 or 2 defenders that I wasn't a big fan of, but I like to think of it like this. You're down, what, three defenders that started the season in Matt Spanger, Justin Robinson, and why am I blanking on the other one? I don't know. I'll try to find it. I know I'm blanking on another defender, but you're down so many defensemen back there. You don't have Adam Bomberry all year. You didn't have Bryce Sweeting all year. I think the players that I'm going to be mentioning here are ones that did step up into a bigger role, and I think they were exposed a bit in this one. But for the most part, I actually liked how the defense was playing. I think it took them a bit of time to actually get in the groove, and 6 goals in the third and 3 in the fourth are not ideal. You don't want to be giving up 9 goals in the second half, but for the most part, I really liked these switch offs. It seemed like there was a lot better communication back there. And the biggest thing to remember for the defense, and we were taking shots at the defense all to start the season, but when you're changing in so many new faces back there constantly, there's not a good reputation of knowing who is going to be where at all times. Like last year, the group was pretty much the same. Like the forwards were the ones getting hurt. The defense was pretty much the same. So you kind of knew, okay, I'm playing with this guy. This is more of his style. I can expect him to be this spot when I'm in this spot. I don't think you're really getting that this year because the defense has been interchangeable all the time. And with defense, communication is so important, and knowing where your partners on defense are so important. And I don't think you're getting that because pieces are changing so often back there.
Yeah, I mean, there were some times, and again, I'll have to go back through and break it down in the article more than anything, but there were definitely some times where they allowed some pick and rolls to get in tight. They just allowed a few times there were just goals that I saw, and I was like, all right, well, that was really bad defense, and it didn't happen too often, but there were definitely some breakdowns, but that's going to happen in pretty much every single game unless your defense is flawless, which none of them around the league are. So, I mean, some breakdowns are going to happen, and it did in this game, but for the most part, like you said, I thought as a collective they played well. A few players really kind of let the rest of the group down, and like you said, a lot of it comes down to the switch up of all these players, the communication of all these players. Like, it's just, I mean, even missing McKay the entire game pretty much on defense. Like, I know I just talked about it and it's still frustrating me, but he's arguably your second best defender outside of Priolo, maybe your best defender back there, and you didn't have him on the defensive end for pretty much the entire game. And he's another player that is going to be that veteran presence back there, can settle things down, is really good at switching off, and is really good with communication. You lose a player like that, yes, he's active in the game, but he was mainly playing offense, and your defense is going to struggle a little bit in those areas. So for the most part, for what they've been dealing with and the unit they had back there, I did think they played pretty well. This is going to be the third straight game I mention him because I'm liking him more and more, but Zach Belter continues to impress me with what he's doing back there. And in this game, not only what his defense looked like, but the team player that he is. And to me, I think he is honestly going to be potentially a Priolo in the making with just how he is as a teammate. I mean, there were multiple times throughout the game. Early on, I liked that him and another rush forward were getting at it, and as he was running to the bench, he just kept chirping at him, which is fun to get in their heads without taking a penalty. Really like that kind of just attitude about him, but at the same time, there was a play late in the game, there was a timeout, and he went up and down the entire bench, like telling everybody good job. When Justin Martin got hurt, he was the one who ran out there to try to help him off the field if he needed it. Like, he's just got that leadership quality about him for his, third game as a rookie, and even the defense he's playing back there, he's very physical, he's very big, and I think he's playing really well so far, again, for a rookie in his third game. So I do think he could be a potential kind of Priolo in the making if he continues to grow as a young defender. He's been really impressive so far this season.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. For defensemen, there's either you notice them for the wrong way or you notice them for the right way. And I think in this game, he used his physicality to the right way. I thought last game there were occasions where he was overly physical and more veteran players kind of like baited him into taking bad penalties. The one was the Brad McCulley one, but for the most part, I really liked his game in this one. He got in for a breakaway on the one attempt. He almost had another breakaway in overtime, but the ball kind of got away from him. But that pass that Dalton Solver had from his butt,
Oh my gosh.
just putting it perfectly into Zach Belter's stick for that
He would've
breakaway.
scored.
It was ridiculous. Like, I don't know how he made that pass. I don't know how Zach Belter kept running for the breakaway, just hoping that Solver could hit him. But that was an unbelievable play. For the negative this side, though,
I was letting you have this.
I thought Cam Wires, who has been relied upon a lot this year, I mean, they've put a ton of work on his plate. He's kind of taken over that Bryce Sweeting, Adam Bomberry spot on the penalty kill, just standing in front of the net. And I think he's logging more minutes than I think the Buffalo Bandits organization would like to put a rookie in that position. And even like the final possession where Saskatchewan had the ball, they're trying to tie it. They relied on Cam Wires and Zach Belter to be those twin towers back there in front of Matt Vince, trying to get the stop there. Now, they didn't get the stop, but I didn't think either of them were Cam Wires or Zach Belter's fault. I thought Ian McKay overplayed the play, and then Steve Perillo didn't recover for it. I thought that was the issue on that one. But I thought Cam Wires, for the most part this season, has had high highs and low lows. I just don't think he has worked on being consistent enough with his play yet. Like I said, there's games where you notice him for all the good reasons, and then there's games where you notice him for all the bad reasons. I think he needs to just work on being more consistent of a defender. I think he has all the ingredients to be another lockdown, big-bodied defender back there. I think it's just coming along slower than I thought I thought it would. The other player that I noticed for all the bad reasons, Frank Brown did not play well at all in this one. I know this is his third game back after, a year and a half, so I'm trying to approach it in that mindset. But how many times can you be fooled by the exact same play until you adjust your style? That jab step that Saskatchewan was having from the one side of the field to get in on Matt Vince in close and give up, I think at least 3, maybe 4 of the goals were because of the play of Frank Brown. Again, I don't know if it's just he's still working on building up that speed again after being out a year and a half. I don't know what it is, but he was real bad in this one when he had been really good in the first 2 games. I don't think he was overly impressive, but I don't think he was bad in the first 2 games. I thought he was bad in this one, and I thought a lot of the goals against were because he was just getting jab stepped. He was falling on his back of his feet and not being able to recover. That's one where you got to check the film and go back and say, hey, I can't be fooled with this, because if he's seeing that, if I'm seeing that, the other teams in the league are seeing that. And with the injuries going down on defense, he's going to have to step up on the back end and be one of those more reliable defenders, and he can't be getting fooled with that play over and over and over again. Otherwise, you're going to see this streak continue and make it 9, 10, 11 games in a row of giving up at least 13 goals.
Yeah, couple injury things. Oh, you have it in your extra. But I'll throw it out here now for the defense. With Justin Martin and the way he got injured, it does look pretty serious. I do wonder, we talked about it afterwards, if Carter McKenzie will be re-signed pretty quickly. If it is truly a pretty big injury and he goes to the IR, then obviously it opens a roster spot, and I do wonder if they will get Carter McKenzie right back on the team to try to maybe take over that position, or at least have the depth on defense. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out in the next week and see what they have to do with their transactions and what these injuries kind of come down as.
Yeah, that one's going to be really bad because he's been one of the best defenders. And for those of you who have been listening to the show for a long time, I was ripping Justin Martin apart last regular season because I did not think he was good last regular season. Playoffs, different Justin Martin, and he was able to carry that playoffs into this season. He's been one of, if not the best defender they have back there. He's not going to put up the numbers, but he's that lockdown defender. That's going to hurt. That's definitely going to hurt back there if he is as hurt as it looked like. I know he was able to walk off the first time and he came back. And I think it was his first shift he got re-injured. And I can't tell if it's his knee. I can't tell if it's his ankle. It looked knee both times.
Knee, yeah.
And it did not look good at all. So we're not speculating at all, but if it's as bad as we think it might be, and again, Ian McKay went down in the playoffs last year, and all of us, the whole arena just went silent, and he was able to come back. So maybe that's this situation. It's not as bad as it looked, but if he misses any time and he joins the ranks of the players that are injured right now, Dietrich has to make a trade and bring in a
Luckily,
veteran
it is before
defender
the
back
trade
there.
deadline, so at least
He
you
has
have
to, and it's
some
Tuesday.
kind of freedom to do something.
Maybe by the time this airs on Monday, that's already happened. But you need to bring somebody in on top of, if you're bringing Carter McKenzie back, I still think you need to make a trade on the back end because who knows if any of these guys are going to be back.
Yeah. And then we can move on to the return of Matt Vince. Great to hear the crowd love him coming back because I think they realize how good he is now that he's been out for a couple of games. And obviously, letting in 14 goals, not ideal, but I thought he played pretty well. I mean, it is something where you have to remember that he has been out for a little bit. I thought really early on, he made some huge saves, like right off the bat. I was like, all right, he looks really good. There were a few plays he didn't have that he probably should have had, but for the most part, I thought he was able to settle things down on the back end. I thought he was able to make some incredible saves, especially late in the game. So for the most part, really happy to have him back. I do wonder if he'll play even better in the next game, just kind of being off a couple weeks, then having to, step back into action. He did not look like it took him a lot of time to get back, but I mean, you still might be not seeing things quite as well as you would have if he, had been playing for so many weeks in a row. So we'll see how he does next week. But for the most part, seeing him back in action, coming off an injury, I thought he looked really good.
I agree. I mean, there were two squeakers that somehow broke through to him. So those ones occasionally happen, but they usually don't happen to Matt Vince. So I think I'll put those on him being out the last 2 weeks. Then there were some that they were ones that Matt Vince has to have. And they were yes, I understand that over his left shoulder has been a weakness his entire career. It's obvious. Every goalie in the league is going to have a few tendencies that they are not excelling at. It happens. It's not just exclusively Matt Vince over his left shoulder. No, there are guys that give up the goal through the 5-hole. There are guys that can't move to the right. It happens to every goalie. But it just seemed like, and I think it was Patrick Dodds at least twice. It was Konechnikov one other time, where the defense was doing exactly what they are supposed to do, forcing the guys to stay out wide. And they would come from, if you're looking from the back end, they're coming from their left to the right to the middle of the field and just beating Matt Vince over that left shoulder constantly. It happened at least 3 or 4 times. I am going to be less critical of Matt Vince in this one because this is his first time in his entire career, at least since 2006, that he has not at least been on the bench. So 2 full games out of just watching the games. I'm going to put that on that because this was a different experience for him being out with injury, finally coming back. So I'm going to expect a Matt Vince who is the best goaltender that's ever played this sport coming into a big game versus Toronto. That's when you get the true elite Matt Vince. After a okay performance, I expect him to bounce back. I fully expect the streak of 13 plus goals against to end next week. It has to eventually end, Phil. I can't reach double digits, right? But I expect to see primetime elite Matt Vince in the Toronto game. And that's not me saying that he didn't have primetime elite Matt Vince moments in this one. In fourth quarter and overtime, he was the reason that they even went to overtime. He's the reason that they won it in overtime because he was making unbelievable. There was a shot in the fourth quarter that probably should have went in, but he was able to get to his left side quick enough. So were there great moments for Matt Vince in this one? By far. But there were also moments where I think he would want the shot back. And again, I'm chalking that up, at least in this one, to him missing those last 2 games and rare things that haven't happened in 18 years for his career.
Yeah, and I think he's the kind of goalie, especially because we see the huddles after every play, that he's going to go back, watch film, and kind of
100%
realize what was happening, see what maybe he could have done better. And that left shoulder, like you mentioned, has always been a bit of a weakness for him, and it does worry me just a little that we got Tom Schreiber coming into town, and he is that righty that can go from left to right over that shoulder, so we'll see how that goes. But even the ones that he allows, again, I'll have to go back and watch and see if there are any easy ones, but even those left shoulder ones, they have to be upper 90, pinpoint yep. Perfect shots. So, I mean, if that's the way you have to beat a goalie, then I'm perfectly fine with that. Like you said, if he takes some of those squeakers back and all they can do is beat him 5, 6, 7 times a game over that left shoulder, and that's the
yep.
way that they have to do it, then that's fine. You know, if that's his weakness, that's his weakness. But even those ones that go in, they're not because he's so far out of position that they're, he's got the whole net open. Like most of those are pretty close to bar down kind of goals where it's barely fitting a lacrosse ball over his shoulder and they're just scoring them. They have to be, again, that perfect shot. And if that's the way you can beat them, then fine. Then you have to force yourself to have a perfect shot. And I'm perfectly okay with that.
So before we wrap up this game, let's get into our second and final sponsor of this episode, Mr. Sizzles. Phil, take it away with Mr. Sizzles, the place that I absolutely adore and love.
Yeah, Mr. Sizzles currently just at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York. They are currently open 7 days a week, 11 to 11. Nice and late for you and kind of early still for lunch with a brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
Now, if for some reason you still have not been to Mr. Sizzles yet, Phil, that means we got to get you there. And we will get you there very, very shortly. I think there is plans in the works to be there very shortly. I don't want to say when we're going to be there because, we carry a big posse, Phil, and a lot of people are going to be swarming. That's a joke. Nobody really likes us. But, yeah, we're going to be there shortly. So if you haven't been there yet, you haven't been able to taste their food. And I still stand by. They have one of the best burgers in the entire city, and they have a full bar inside. What is also insane is they've only been doing this going on 3 years now, since 2021, and patting myself on the back, I am still the OG of Mr. Sizzles. I've been going there since 2021.
And they use eco-friendly recycled materials for packaging their bags, cups, and straws. Like we've mentioned a few times, their milkshakes are incredible, and they have a lot of options available, including, and we'll say milkshake adjacent, they have some spiked ice cream drinks available as well that seem really good for the upcoming spring and summer.
Yeah, I've already made a note. I'm getting one of those. For some reason, I haven't. Like we were going through the menu the other day, and I realized, man, they have ice cream cocktails. Yeah, delicious. I'm gonna get those. But not only, and me and Brooke actually just went to an all-vegan breakfast this morning. So if you do have a vegan in your life like I do, they have plenty of options like that, and they can make a few of these burgers that are on the menu vegan as well. So you really can't even taste the difference. I mean, me and Brooke have brought multiple people to different vegan restaurants, and they can't tell the taste between what's real meat and what is vegan meat. Try either one. They're delicious. This place does not make bad food in any way. Like anything on their menu is going to be delicious.
Yeah, Dane Smith finished this last game with 3 goals, 7 assists, and he has partnered with Mr. Sizzles to create his own sandwich called the Great Dane Sandwich. It is fried chicken, hot honey, chipotle sauce, crispy onions, avocado, and pepper jack cheese on a brioche bun in honor of his incredible game that he just had. Go get the sandwich that he created because it is amazing.
So check out their full menu and any other things they have working in the works, like their 2 soon-to-be open new businesses elsewhere around the Western New York area on their socials or at MrSizzles.com. Thank you again, Mr. Sizzles, for sponsoring this show and this episode. Let's dive back into and wrap up this game. Phil, I thought they did a very good job, and that's Buffalo in this one, staying out of the penalty box. And I thought for the most part, the refs let a lot of the game play out and let the players decide that. And I love those type of games where they're consistently not blowing the whistle on every tick-tacky thing, which we kind of saw in the Vancouver game, which none of them were really bad calls, but they were blowing everything. But I really liked what I saw out of the penalty kill. Saskatchewan got Buffaloed, where they put another guy at the midline, and they didn't end up scoring. They killed off a 5-on-3. They did a very good job, and I know it was you that mentioned, Buffalo hasn't faced Saskatchewan in, over 2,000 days, and we were wondering, okay, what type of defense or what type of player are we going to get? Are we going to get a team that absolutely hates Saskatchewan for no reason whatsoever, or are we going to get a team that literally hasn't played each other in over 6 years? So I thought we got the latter, and I thought they played aggressive and smart, and I really liked their play. I didn't really notice any big-time calls. The only one that was questionable was the Nanico cross-checking from behind. It felt more like a block from behind, but maybe it was because he got him in the back with a cross-check. I just thought that one, I can see it going either way. I just leaned, and maybe it was because I was in the seats in Bandit Land where I'm letting my bias show a bit. I thought it should have just been Blode block in the back, but they were able to kill off that 5-on-3, so credit to them.
Yeah, I actually had the same thing when I watched the replay on the Jumbotron of that one. I also thought
Right.
the exact same thing. I was like, well, that seems a bit stiff of a call for that kind of play. I thought it also should have been a block in the back. I have not gone back and watched it, but I thought that was, like you said, change of possession, dead whistle, that's all fine. Did not think it was really a foul, especially with the way they were calling things so loose the entire time, just letting things go. Didn't really think that warranted. Nick Weiss's body check right after, just ridiculously undisciplined by Nick Weiss.
Got him in the head.
He absolutely knew what he did. I don't even know why he was fighting it. You cannot jump up into somebody's face and expect not to get called. I don't know what he was doing on that play. The play was pretty much dead. Belzer had the guy pinned against the boards. There was no reason to go full speed and jump and just shoulder the guy in the face. It was just an undisciplined play, but for the most part, like you said, outside of that, I thought the fouls were well called. And like you mentioned, there's one foul in the first quarter, one in the second, one in the third for both teams, and then a few in the fourth. But for the most part, the refs just kind of let them play, which we love to see. Let a lot go for both teams, which if you're going to let it go for both teams, it's fine. That's what we ended up seeing. And then the really fun one with the fans where Chase Fraser had the dead ball foul and everybody booed the refs like crazy. And then the Bandits ended up with the power play and scored. And they kind of put out an embarrassed yay after the ref was finally done talking and told the fans that they would be on the power play and it wasn't just against Chase Fraser, despite the fact that Fraser seemed very mad at himself and also kicked his helmet like halfway down the field and had to go run and get it. I don't know why Fraser was so upset on that play. I don't know if he
I think it was a culmination of the game. He was not playing
fair.
well. He was not getting his shots. I think it was
That's
just
fair.
he tried to pick up a
Just mad
stick
at
and
himself.
somebody was chirping at him. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it just all boiled over.
Because it didn't seem like if it was for the foul, I thought it was right away. I thought it was at least going to be 5-on-5. Both players got penalties. I didn't really expect the extra face mask on the rush. I thought that was interesting for the Bandits to even go on the power play there. I thought it was just going to be 5-on-5, dead ball foul, roughing kind of calls. But yeah, Fraser did not have the best game, and like you said, it was probably just the frustration of just not playing very well, and then insult to injury, just booting his helmet accidentally way too far down the field. Having to go get it was a little bit unfortunate for him, but I thought the rest were fine.
Now, on top of that, I don't know if other people noticed or if they were already headed to the exits, but he was also limping off the field. Where they, after their win, they run around and just thank the crowd. He limped off and he smashed his stick. So keep an eye on Chase Fraser coming up in the Toronto game because he either pulled something, twisted something, or something because he went down the tunnel limping pretty hard and pretty angry at himself. So that's just another insult to injury, literally, after the game, just getting hurt like that. But Phil, I know there was one other thing you wanted to talk about this. I am obligated not to address it, so I'm going to sit this one out and just let you take it.
Yeah, and then real quick for what you mentioned, though, Bandits were 3 for 3 on the power play, penalty kill 0 for 2, including that 5-on-3. So just in general, huge turnaround from special teams that have been struggling
Big reason
on
they
both
won.
sides of it. And yes, I agree. That's pretty much the reason they won. You outscored the opposing team 3-0 in special teams, and to me, that is what the difference in the game was. And speaking of that, I know a lot of people are going to say that Faceoffs.
I'm kicking back and relaxing here. My arms are behind my head. I'm not going to say a word to this. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I think this was just the perfect game, honestly. I think the way it all played out for Faceoffs and having a true Fogo guy, which we now know is wow, my goodness, is he a true Fogo player? This is no offense to the Milkman, but please, if you continue playing, win the Faceoff and pass it to somebody immediately. But I think this game was just perfect for how we feel about the faceoffs, and that's the fact that the Bandits won 27-6 in faceoffs. The Saskatchewan Rush outshot the Bandits by 6, and the game went all the way to overtime. So you had 21 extra possessions based on the faceoff alone, and you were still outshot by the other team, and the game went to overtime. So for goals, it didn't matter. For shots, it didn't matter. So I think it was just perfect to see that throughout the game, faceoffs still to us, and even by the stats from this game, do not mean anything. Now, that being said, this is another example of what we like about faceoffs and why it's good to have this kind of player is the fact that this game went to overtime. There were a lot of crucial times in this game. There was a face-off right before halftime that he won. The Bandits were able to call a timeout, set up a really good play that was very close to going in. Johnny T set up an incredible play on that one. I think Chiliano just made a barely really good save on that one. And then at the end of the fourth quarter, there was a really big face-off. He was able to win that one, get the Bandits another opportunity, another great setup by Johnny T, and they didn't score. And as we know, in overtime, they don't have timeouts anymore, but he at least won the first face-off for that one and got the Bandits the initial opportunity to score in that situation as well. So when face-offs matter, he was able to win them, and that's all we've ever wanted from a face-off player. But outside of those 3 face-offs, which he did win, so that's still important, but outside of those 3, winning the face-off battle 27-6 as far as a game goes literally meant nothing, as you were still outshot by the other team and still took it all the way to overtime as far as just winning the face-off. So as exciting as it is, I guess, for the fans who love face-offs and want to win them all the time, it does not seem to translate, I mean, based on the stats, to anything else other than simply congratulations, you won a face-off. But throughout the game, it does not really matter. But when it does matter, it was nice to have him in this situation. And that's exactly when we've discussed having face-offs, that having that kind of player that can win them in crucial situations is important. And there were a few of those throughout this game, and he was able to win those. So it was nice for that aspect of it. But beating a team 27-6 in faceoffs literally translated for the most part to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, the only thing other I'm going to add, because you said everything else I wanted to say. We've never said that faceoffs truly don't matter. We've always said, and you can check the tape, faceoffs matter when they do. And they came up in this game, and he got the job done. And we've always said, would it be nice to have that weapon in your back pocket that you can instantly win it? Yes. One goal came immediately off a face-off win. Otherwise, Saskatchewan would get the ball back and get an opportunity to score. That's what we mean by it's true 50-50. The stats prove it. Face-offs only matter when they do. I've been saying it for 3 years. But, I mean, you said it perfectly. Win the face-off, get off the field. Too many times the milkman got thirsty, and I will credit that to my wife. She came up with that slogan. The milkman got thirsty and was trying to capitalize on it. Way too many shots. I think I said it. I think he had more shots in this game than Max Adler did in his entire year and a half career for the Buffalo Bandits. So win the face-off, get it to somebody, get off the field.
He was only credited with one, but a lot of his also missed the net. So.
Yeah, one of them bounced like 7 feet from the net.
So,
yeah, if he's treated like a true Fogo, win the face-off, find somebody and go. But again,
like his intensity before we leave it. He was
loved his intensity.
Yeah,
he's going to be a fan favorite, and I see why.
He was psyched for the crowd, psyched to be there, really just excited. So, like the player, like what he brought, like the energy he brought. Face-offs are absolutely whatever to us, other than important situations, which came up in this game. He was able to win them, so it was overall, I guess, worth the investment in a way. I guess possibly, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see how he does against a true face-off team coming up in Toronto.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I know I'm going to get fined because I've been talking too much about this when I'm already obligated not to, but facing TD Erlin next week. So if you're a true Fogo, let's see how you face off against one of the best in the league. I have him number 3 in the league as a face-off man. He's really good. That's all we got for this game.
Quick on face-offs.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Just because I was looking up. We'll go over it super quick. So first off, penalty minutes, the leader in the entire league is Jake Withers. I just thought that was funny. And loose balls, the leader is Withers by 208 to 126. So he's pretty good as far as faceoffs go. Just want to throw that out there. But for points, I don't know if you have points per game on you by chance.
Nope.
Okay.
One thing that
Josh
I don't
Byrne,
track.
Currently leading the entire league with 87. Dane Smith right behind him with 83. And then Jeff Teat with 78. If I'm reading this information correctly, which I think my math is accurate, New York and the Bandits have both played 12 games. So it's not even like we're waiting for Teat to catch up. I think they are truly, like Josh Byrne alone, I think is truly 9 points ahead in the lead for the scoring title for points per game on the season, which is insane. It was something that I mentioned in the bold prediction that he would possibly beat Dane Smith in points this year, and he's just having an absolutely monster season. I know it's obviously being talked about, but I don't think I realized he had made that big of a jump on the list again, if I'm reading this correctly, which I think I am.
You are.
Crazy. I mean, you had Teat kind of running away with it because he was starting to get on a really hot streak, and Josh Burns just remained incredibly consistent. He's actually the one really taken off this season on points. It'd be interesting to see if he can come up with or even get close to Dane Smith's record. I think he would probably love that a lot. Speaking of the milestones that he can possibly reach, and PK, go.
Yeah, thanks, transition, but I'm going to call back to, a year and a half ago, something like that, when I was relating Bert and Ernie to Josh and Dane. Ernie has become Bert, and I don't even know if that's the right way to phrase it, but yeah, incredible season for Josh Byrne. But going back to the milestones, like you transitioned me to, fastest milestone minute. All of these can be found leading up in Buffalo Sports Buffalo Sports Co. on X, and we post on the lead up. Ian McKay was one shot away from 200. He did get that for his career. Frank Brown was only 4 loose balls away from 100 for his career. He got exactly 4, so he's got that. Matt Vince, they made the announcement in the arena. Once again, congrats to Buffalo for actually recognizing some of these milestones. I absolutely love it this year. He is now the all-time saves leader for Buffalo Bandits in franchise history. Congrats to him. And Dane Smith was his 7 assists that night. Thank you, Dane, for getting so many assists. I can read even less on the next show. He tied himself for 4th place in a single Buffalo Bandits season with 68, which he has set in 2015 and 2018. And I believe he's going to break a few more of these on his way to a career season. He is currently on pace for 102 assists on the year.
That is fantastic, and I am happy. We mentioned slightly jokingly that he would get to 7 assists this game and allow you to not read nearly as much on your next preview for milestones, and he did it. He did it just for you. He called you out. He was like, PK, I got you, and your reading of his own milestones, and he came through for you. It was nice to see. Very nice of him.
I appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. But let's go over the NL outlook. Like, again, we're recording on Saturday before the games even start, so we only have 2 games to talk about real quick. The NL outlook, Vancouver was in Albany and came up with a loss. Albany took the victory 13-8 in this one. 7-5 Albany advantage in goals scored in the 4th quarter. It was just a haymaker of a 4th quarter to end the game. And then Calgary was in Georgia. They also came up winless. All the home teams won this weekend, Phil, so far. Pretty incredible. Georgia took this one 13-12 in overtime. Georgia tied at 12-12 with 48 seconds left, and then they won in overtime. But 2 victories that I believe went Buffalo's way. I guess Albany didn't, but Albany's so far ahead it doesn't really matter. But at least Calgary losing to Georgia, that does help Buffalo solidify more of a spot in the 5, 6, 7, 8 range in the playoff seeding right now.
Yeah, and we still got a lot of big weekend games, like you mentioned. Obviously, By the time this is out, they'll all be concluded. But from what we can still see, that hasn't happened yet. I honestly think we want Albany to beat Rochester at this point. The Bandits aren't going to catch Albany, especially now with the tiebreakers. So let Rochester's number 1 pick continue to be better and better. And then Las Vegas, you want over New York. Don't see that happening, but possibly. And then Panther City, you want Philly to take that one. There's still some pretty important games this week. Buffalo could really put themselves in a pretty decent playoff spot. Not good, but decent if Panther City and New York end up taking the L's, and seeing those teams at 5-7 and 5-8 while the Bandits are at 6-6 would look really good, but we'll see how it all shakes out. And I still do not know who you want between Halifax and San Diego. I don't know. That's really a toss-up. I really hope the Bandits can get on a massive win streak and possibly sneak into the top 4 and get a home playoff game, but they have a lot of work to do still.
So we are about an hour in. Let's breeze through these Buffalo Sabres really quick because, they're still so far out of a playoff spot that we don't really care about these games. But if there is anything we really want to talk about, we can talk about really quick. Thursday versus the Predators, they were playing as we were recording. They lost 4-2. Byram and Power are the goal scorers. Shocker, your defense was the only goal scorers in this one. Comrie, 20 of 24 saves, giving UPL a rest. 28-24 for Sabres lead in shots. And then Saturday, just wrapped up before we started recording, versus the Oilers. They won this one 3-2 in overtime. Tage, Bryson, and Power were the goal scorers. UPL 30 of 32 saves. Shots were 32-26 in favor of Buffalo.
Yeah, Byram in the second game against the Oilers also tied the team lead in shots on goal with Tage and Cousins both at 4 as well. For the games, I thought Comrie honestly played okay. In the Predators game, the defense really left him out to dry on a lot of them. They were just pretty much tap-ins by the Predators, who are a better team. Then in Sabres, I thought he did okay. Byram coming in, getting an assist and a point and a goal was really good to see. Just him very quickly transition. Good to see what he could potentially be on this team. Then the Oilers game, congrats on an overtime win against a good team. UPL still looks incredible, and we have not really seen him falter yet. And I know we looked up a lot of this before. I don't know if you want to go over your fun, how gross the offense is, but I wanted to see how UPL was doing throughout the entire year as far as the stats stack up against the entire NHL, because we have talked about since January 1st, he's been one of the best, if not the best goalie in the entire NHL. So how does it look year long? And he currently is, out of goalies that have played at least 30 games, he is top 7 in save percentage and top 4 in goals against on the year. And the Sabres are still just at 500, a little depressing to be a top 5 goalie pretty much essentially, and the Sabres can't get him any offensive help to win some games for him. But he still looks really, really good.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the forwards much at all. We know how struggling they've been. The only thing I'm going to point out with these games, and I know the highlights been going around, the first power play that Byram was on, he was all over the ice, and the rest of the power play group was just literally just standing around, and he's directing people on where to go. It's something that we talked about all season long, was the power play is a massive issue for this team. So I'm hoping that highlight embarrasses them enough or does something enough to spark some kind of change in the power play. I know it's been better recently, but after seeing that, maybe it's better because they're getting luckier and teams are like, hey, they're not scoring on the power play, so they're pulling off a bit. But it's just embarrassing seeing him just all over the ice, moving it all around, not just staying at his defensive position. He's getting in front of the net. He's going behind the net. He's going left to right. He's all over the stinking ice, directing people around. And you're seeing nothing move on the Sabres. I think that's a huge indication of what good coaching there is in Colorado and what bad coaching there is in Buffalo right now. And you can even sum it up with Casey Middlesex, his first comments after pregame skate. I never thought I would sweat this much, and I'm summarizing. I didn't say this word for word, but I haven't sweated that much in a pregame skate in I don't know how long. Maybe that's an indication that Buffalo's got to change something up. So, hint, hint, nod, nod. That's 2 marks against you after 1 trade. Fix something. But trade deadlines, I don't have anything else in the games, Phil. I don't really care anymore. Fair. It's just looking what power scoring twice. Cool, great, moving forward. Trade deadline happened, and we weren't expecting anything big. I mean, I guess, would they move Samuelson? Would they move Yogi Haru? I didn't really think that was expecting. Yeah, that wasn't anything that I was fully expecting the trade deadline. Right. It might be more of a off-season / draft kind of moment. Yep. But Kyle Oposo goes to Florida for a 2024 7th, and that could be a 5th if Florida wins the Cup, so go Panthers. And then Kali Shalin, who cares, defender, really, all-time minor leaguer, never going to be up. I think he was drafted in 2015 or 17 or something like that. He's not going to be an NHL player. He's more of a depth guy in the AHL. Eric Johnson went to Philly for a 4th, and Devin Cooley, AHL player, went to the Sharks for a Washington 2025 7th. To me, to sum this all up, you open more room for possible younger players to make a name for themselves, and yes, that's not going to happen. Kevin Adams said it himself. He's not really going to happen. It sounds like Zemeckis Skirkins is going to be back, but I think the biggest thing here is he's giving the veteran players like Oposo and Johnson, who might be in the final year of their career, an opportunity to make the playoffs and an opportunity to go for a Stanley Cup. So I think that's the only nice thing. And yes, word goes around the NHL. Sam Reinhart has mentioned it. He put him in a good position to succeed. Jack Eichel, a few other players that he's traded along the lines. He puts them in a good position to excel after Buffalo, and that's why you're seeing Ryan O'Reilly win a cup. You see Jack Eichel win a cup. You see Sam Reinhart's in a good position to win a cup. Now Oposo's in a good position to win the cup. So I think that is my biggest takeaway here is Kevin Adams is at least doing right by some of the players that come through the system.
Yeah, like I mentioned, the few things that I don't like. I mean, one, Buffalo is now just being known pretty much for farewell videos to players because they can't make playoffs or keep anybody. Even Eric
Yep.
Johnson was like a at the beginning of the season, great offseason acquisition, exactly what a team who's in a playoff position would look for. That's why he got traded for a fourth, but nothing means nothing now to the Sabres because he didn't really play all that great, and his veteran presence is useless on a team that's not going to make playoffs. But I do wonder what the conversation between Opozo and Reinhart kind of looks like now that they're both in the same spot. They've played together obviously quite a bit. I do just wonder, like, what are they discussing in Florida? Obviously away from everything. Just what are they possibly saying about Buffalo? But overall, trade deadline was pretty meh. I don't really care about draft picks all that much in the NHL, like you mentioned. Just really nice to see him treat these players properly, nicely, politely to get them, especially Opozo and even Johnson, to potential playoff teams in possibly, like you said, their last season, getting them a chance to really just go play some playoff hockey. Almost said lacrosse. Play some playoff hockey, especially Opozo, who's been part of the Sabres for a while. Obviously, they haven't made playoffs, so it'll be good for him to get out there and do something. But I don't know. This team needs a lot of help, and this season's just a wash again.
Yeah, still would have liked this if they would have brought up some guys, but it sounds like Olsen.
Yeah, no, that was the other
gonna
thing.
get a lot
I
of time.
hate that so much. What do we,
Yep.
like bringing Gergensons back? Why? I don't get that at all. If that actually ends up happening, just
It was not the time and the place to announce it. Like everybody was already let down by
just
the
why?
season
Just
and the deadline
why?
and
I
everything.
don't get
It's
it.
not the time to be talking about bringing Zemgus Girgensson back. I don't know what type of blackmail he has on Terry Pagula, but to continue to bring back a guy who is a fourth liner, yes, he's good in the room, but guess what? Nothing has happened in 13 years, so maybe change up what is happening in the room.
And like you mentioned, even Olsen, like send him to the AHL. He's not going to be on the team next year. Having him take up a roster
worthless.
spot is
It's
just
worthless.
useless. Like even if he gets claimed by waivers, who cares? Like get rid of him. Just get rid of him off the team. And I don't even care if he's playing well. He's not going to be here next year. So you're literally just wasting a roster spot for the rest of the season when you could be calling up a young player to see what they got, see where they fit in the lineup, give them some NHL experience. No, we're just going to waste it on Gergensons, who shouldn't be here next year. You're going to waste it on Olofsson, who won't be here next year for no reason. Those kind of moves are so incredibly frustrating, and still just, like you said, you look for some kind of hopeful end to this season, which is pretty much just watching the future again of younger players, and they're not even going to give them a chance. Instead, they're just going to run out the same terrible roster and just watch it implode upon itself, which will be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I think 17 more games suffer through. 17.
Yeah. Go
Come
UPL.
on, May.
He's great.
Let's go, May. Let's go, May. Phil, anything else from this episode before we shut it down until next Thursday? Long time until we're recording again.
No, we are all good. Congratulations to the Bandits finally getting back in the win column. It was a long, depressing losing streak, and yeah, we'll get into the Toronto game next time.
Yeah, we'll preview that Toronto Rock Bandits game on the next show. We'll bring any more Sabres news, action, games, whoopee on the next show. Remember, this was recorded on Saturday mid-afternoon because I am headed down to Texas now. So, we'll see you guys all soon. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this episode and this show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Phil's article is dropping on Tuesday tomorrow, and mine will be dropping at some point on Thursday. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.